And welcome back. This is Frost Gaming 25, and today we're going to do an extra special episode here where we're going to be talking a little bit about this new Witch Doctor build that is currently running around. I kind of found it myself, but then realized that the leaderboards also are using it, so then I felt much more reassured to make this video. But I just want to kind of go over some of the things that this build actually offers. But one thing I will note is I don't have all of the gear that's ideal for this build, so I am still missing pieces of that I will have to account for in a little bit of a later point whenever I actually find the gear. But currently, to tell you the things that I don't need that I have is the Scrimshaw. This is not required for the build at all. It's actually, you would rather have a Sacred Harvester. And the second one that I have that's not required is the Hojo Wrap. However, it is useful because it slows the enemies down, so it can help you a little bit out, especially when you're applying Locust Swarm all the time. If we go into here, we have Wormwood, the Mask of Jerem, and the Royal Ring of Grandeur. Ideally, you'd flip this with this, but because I have a pretty decent roll, decent at best, I mean, the only reason why it's decent is because it's ancient, but it could have a higher number on it, and if I was cubing it, it would have a higher number, but I don't have another Royal Ring yet, so that would be another thing that can be optimized. And then the last one is Essence of John, is not required whatsoever. You can use, if you don't mind taking extra damage, and if you do have the Sacred Harvester, you could, I guess, sacrifice some of that and put it on a Squirt's Necklace, which will give you way more damage, but you're going to take 50% more damage, so it can be a little bit finicky. If you're worried about taking a lot of damage, this could be a downside to use. I would only suggest it if you're really trying to push the damage, and you don't, if you're playing like core and you're not playing hardcore, then you could definitely go with this one, and I think that actually might be your best bet. Otherwise, you can also go with another variant, which would be what I want to test. I haven't actually tested it yet, but I want to try getting the Hellfire Amulet and roll one of the passives, one of these passives, or the one I want to put in is either Pierce the Veil or Bad Medicine, depending on survivability or damage. So if I want more damage, obviously I'm going to go this. And if I want more survivability, I'll go this. Reason being is because we're always poisoning because of a couple of things. Pronado, poisons, and once again, the Locust Swarm that always is being applied, poisons. And then as for the other one, we don't spend mana. Mana is nothing to us with this build. All of our mana cost is right here in the Pronado, and you only can cast that every 16 seconds, which is good. That keeps you from running out of mana very easily. But the way that this build works is way different than any other build that I've ever used before, because I've always played builds where you really want to prioritize your cooldown reduction. You want as much cooldown reduction as humanly possible. Well, in this build, not so much. You don't actually want cooldown reduction at all. You want as low of cooldown reduction as possible, because your abilities, the more abilities that are on cooldown, the higher my toughness becomes. And my damage. And it's all because of this gem in my helmet. So it makes it so my cooldowns are increased by 25%, so they're actually longer. And then they are, for every skill on cooldown, I take 12.5% reduced damage and deal 12.5 increased damage per skill. So if I have all 6 skills running cooldown simultaneously, I am actually benefiting from 6 times this effect, which is insane. The amount of toughness, you can just watch my toughness go from 23 million back to the 80. So that's just the toughness side. In terms of the damage meets the same bar, and it really can play to your favor. Now the added bonus, and the way that my things rolled, is I actually get, if 3 or more skills are on cooldown, I get a bonus to my lightning and fire damage by 50%. So if I've got all my skills running again, we're actually pulling in a total fire damage of 86%. And that's without optimization. I can still bring it up more, and there's ways to improve it further. Technically, fire damage isn't the best route, but the way that my thing's set up, it works. The other one that I have that's going for me is my main attack, or my main gem right here on my weapon, gives me critical hit damage, 139%. 9% critical hit chance, which we want both of those stats. We definitely would love to stack those stats as much as possible. But I'm also getting 21% increased damage against elites with the life per hit at 29,000. Thorn's damage is kind of, it's a throwaway stat. You don't necessarily need it, but it doesn't hurt to have either. You know, it's just a little bit extra. And then I have, each time your pet hits an enemy, and you'll go up 0.5% damage, and once it gets to 100 stacks, it'll quickly reset back to 0 and you start up again. So it gives you little damage bursts as you keep going. You also deal 25% less damage as yourself. However, because of this, your pets gain 25%. So it takes it from you. You're not really dealing the damage here. Keeping in mind you're using everything else that has nothing to do with your pets. The only damage you're actually doing is from these 2 skills. The rest is your pets doing all of it. And Gargantuan specifically is the one that's doing the most. The zombie dogs, I just kind of have them for extra damage reduction. But the other beauty of it is there's an alternate version of this gem I actually do have. I'm not using it right now. If you find yourself to be very squishy and you really are worried about dying, if that's like something you're really afraid of, there is this version of the Dredge of Lies, which, if you're lucky, you can get it, but it says, on receiving fatal damage, spawn a shadow that prevents your death, restores 35% of your health, grants 225 all resist all the party members, and it lasts for 15 seconds. So you can go for this if you feel like you're on hardcore and you feel like you might die. This is a definitely viable route to take. And it's up to you whether you choose it or not, but it's a viable build if you're feeling like you're really having a hard time with your survivability and you want that extra layer of protection, which I already have 2 cheat deaths as it is. So 2 cheat deaths, one from Vanish right here, and then I have one from the passive. So I could go for that extra, but it is ultimately up to me on whether or not I choose it. But I I think it's fine, and this one seems to be doing a lot more damage, just giving you that extra burst of damage. The gems, the ideal gems that you'd want to use, in my opinion, Bane of the Stricken is a definite. Enforcer is definitely a one you want. And then the other one, which I don't have the third one on, but if you did want to put on the third one, you could either go for the survivability gem, which if you did go that route, I would suggest possibly going with the mortarium or mortium. That one's a pretty solid defensive one. Otherwise, the other possibility would be between using the Bane of the Trapped or Z's Stone of Vengeance. Either of these is very viable for an offensive, as you can stand far away from your enemy. When you're actually attacking, you can walk away from the Gargantuans, they'll keep doing their damage, and you'll get that damage increase if you want to go that route. Otherwise, you can actually take benefit from the Hoji rep and have Bane of the Trapped always proc. So, it's not a bad third one. So it's up to you what you want for your playstyle, but these are two very, very good options. I would probably start with this one, but if you want to play that style, you can definitely go for the Z Stone of Vengeance as well. Other than that, this build has been a lot of fun to play, and honestly, it's not the fastest build. You can't really expect to do anything quickly in this, but I'll show you right now. Just doing an 87, so this is currently the highest I can go. And even just sitting at the base where we don't even have our benefit from the Lacunos. Now we do, but you can see we're already sitting at a nice pretty 600 million and counting. 800 million. And so the toughness isn't a problem, and I'm not even using optimal gear like I mentioned when I started. So you can definitely improve upon it still, which is incredible. So the play style you want to go for is constantly look and see where you are, obviously in the map, but you want to see is a skill on cooldown. If it's not, you want to use it as soon as possible. Just use the skill and have it reset, including your Gargantuans. You want to resummon them all the time. Your followers, you want to resummon. Anything to keep your skills on cooldown is going to help you greatly. And you can let your followers do all the work. The only thing you have to do is sit there and keep casting for them. But you can see we're making easy work of a GR87, and currently I am up there in the leaderboards, but I'm sure some people will pass me because I'm only willing to go so far, but I'm going to push it as far as I can, and as I get the gear to make up for it, I'll try to push further and further. But you can see already, just in this little bit, we've made it through 27%. We're not having any issues, and we're able to clear everything very quickly. I can stand here and do nothing if I want. I can go into my other form, let my followers do their thing, whatever I need to do. They'll knock down the enemies real quick. One important thing to note, typically I usually go Severance on most of my skills when I'm doing anything on this particular build. But in this particular rift, we want to actually focus on Healing Journey or increasing your duration doing jaunts. Either of those is a fine a fine choice, but personally, I like the healing whenever I go back into my spirit walk, just in case if I get myself into a predicament, I get low health, I can get 15% of it back just by being in spirit walk. And we don't want to move too fast. Severance makes you move way too quickly, and you can actually get yourself into bad spots in bad situations because of how fast your character starts to move. So it actually ends up hurting you more than helping if you do choose to go with Severance. So we are quickly making easy work of all these enemies. This isn't even an ideal rift, in all honesty, for what we'd want, but even given that, we're not having any issues. You can see right here that the enemies are falling, elites are falling insanely fast, and kind of goes to my point of, I saw the leaderboard, and the first place person, while he had a couple of good items that I would say that might be worth using, I do think that this roll of the Dregs of Lies rolled better than his by a long shot because I get the increased damage against elites. That is so effective when you're having elites spawning from these pylons, and also just generally when you're having to go against the bosses, go against elites, just anything that's going to give you those orbs to get progress. You're going to always get a nice damage bonus against them. And then I can stand inside this just to add to the damage that I already have, making even quicker work of something that was already easy. Yeah, you can see they're hitting trillions without any issue. And that's the Rift. So you can watch the Rift Guardian now. We still don't have very high level gems. I really am missing quite a few things for it to be really good. But that was it. We are now ranked 16 on the leaderboards for Greater Rifts, and it's been a fun, this is a fun Rift. In all honesty, this build is a lot of fun to play. And keep in mind, I'm using 2 gems, and one of them is level 0. One of them is 26, so they're not high level gems by any means. And to further my point, I'm using a non-ancient weapon and a non-ancient offhand, so I can further a lot of non-ancient items, and I don't have any augments on the ancient items that I have. So even these items that are ancient, they're not augmented, so I'm not getting any more. And I'm easily able to go through that rift and not struggle whatsoever. So if you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing, and I would be happy to make more, especially figuring out the ins and outs of this new season. The gems that they have this season just are a lot of fun, and I'm really enjoying it. But with that being said, I'll see you in the next one.